Welcome to Life Inspired Coach. My name is Bethany Lewis, and I'm excited to spend this time with you. I'm a life coach that loves to be inspired, and I'm using this platform as a way to share some of the inspiration that has come my way. I hope it's as inspiring for you as it has been for me. I also want to let you know that coaching with me is an option. Check out my website, www.lifeinspiredcoach.com, for more information about working with me, and listen at the end for some more details. Now, on to what's next. Enjoy! All right, so this month I decided to switch things up a bit, and instead of doing a class, I decided to do an interview with someone who inspires me. I'm excited for you to meet my friend and mentor, Aselin Maloney. She's been a life coach for 5 years and uses a variety of tools and methods in her coaching that make her a very effective coach. Listen in as she shares some of her journey to becoming a life coach and how coaching helps people. I will include in the show notes the names of the people and resources she mentions in our conversation, so you can refer to those if you're interested in learning more about them later. She also shares some of the ideas and concepts that she has found to be particularly useful for her clients, and I'm excited for you to hear those as well. So let's get to it. Enjoy this interview with Aselin Maloney. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here, Aselin. I'm excited to have my friend and mentor, Aselin Maloney, join me for an interview today. And I will start by sharing a little bit about how I met and know Aselin, and then I will let her introduce herself a little bit more. So we actually met last September at Jody Moore's Be Bold Masters event, which was a week-long kind of immersive coaching experience. And they had about 100 people there, and they split us up into groups of 20. And I got lucky enough to be put in Aslan's small group. And I noticed on the very first day that every time Aslan spoke, it was profound, and I always wanted to hear more of what she had to say. And like I said, it was a week-long thing, and that was the first day. I was like, okay, I need to get to know this lady. I just really loved the insights that she had and the way she approached topics. And we're both members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I really loved the gospel perspective that she brought into the conversations and comments. And so near the end of the week, I realized I hadn't gotten a chance to have a one-on-one conversation with her yet, and ended up cornering her after dinner that we had gone to, and basically told her that I want to know everything that she knows and to be her, and how can I do that? And she was very kind and gracious about my weirdness, and told me that she has trained people to do coaching in the past and offered that as an option for me. So she couldn't offer me a certification, but she could teach me the tools that she uses and where to get more information on them, and just kind of help me get started. So that's what we did. And another awesome friend that we met from our small group and I joined together and did some training, and it was awesome. And she just kind of helped me get my feet wet with coaching and give me some good feedback and encouragement, and it's been great. So I'm so excited that she's here. So thank you so much for being here, Aselin. And I will let you give us whatever background you want us to know about you. You can start as far back as you want, but go ahead and introduce yourself for us.
So I am a people acuity Gallup coach, and I work with a lot of corporate groups in doing strengths coaching. And then I've added a number of layers of certification. Jody Moore and Brooke Castillo's model is one of those, and that's where Bethany and I met. I'm a graduate of Brigham Young University in political science, and I have been coaching for 5 years. Right now, in our church capacity, my husband and I are serving in the YSA program, and he's a bishop, so I'm the special assistant to the bishop, the wife. And I was very surprised. They set you apart as a special assistant to the bishop, so that's an actual calling.
I didn't know that.
I did not either. They were like, "Come on, sit down." And I went, "Oh, okay." So I thought I was the supportive role. And
the YSA being young single adults, right?
Yeah, thank you very much. And it has been an amazing gift to be able to work with people with what I know about coaching and how that just changes lives, and then use the gospel overtly and speak about the truth that is behind this mortal experience that we're having, and help adjust kind of this story that a lot of us have in our heads about what's going wrong with our lives and with our experience. And it's just been, I'm so grateful right now that that's where we're spending most of our service time. I have a lot of corporate clients, And then I do a lot of YSA stuff also. So that's been the focus of where I am now. And then I have some coaching programs. I'm doing another coaching class right now. So I have quite a few clients in that.
Excellent. Oh, I love it. That is awesome. So tell me, how did you get interested in coaching and how did you get your start there?
Yeah, coaching found me, which was really interesting. But when I'm really honest about it, I think I really know that I was supposed to be in coaching. My first round with going to university, it was at BYU in the 80s. And my first round, I was specializing in organizational behavior. I was majoring in organizational behavior and international relations, and was loving that, and got the chance to work with Stephen Covey as he was coming out with his stuff. He was working there at the time, and I was in student council. And so a lot of his Christ-centered leadership ideas and his habits ideas, he was developing and sharing those with my little group and our little tiny class that we had with him. And it was just mind-boggling, life-changing. Coaching wasn't a thing then, but that sort of space was where I was very drawn to. Mm. Then I had the unfortunate opportunity to pick up a stalker. I have the craziest stories. You do have stories. And so this stalker altered my trajectory. And so I was a senior at BYU, and the police said, we actually can't protect you, and recommended that I drop out of school. So I dropped out of school and went home and ended up getting a job that was fantastic, and worked at a startup and got a lot of information, but I just kind of hung there as a senior, unfinished, and not on the plan that I thought that I was going to follow. Mm. So fast forward a number of years, and I get married, and I say to my husband, I have to graduate from college. I don't care what it's in. This stalker person's not taken the trajectory of my life. He's not taken over.
Good for you.
And he actually ended up spending some time in jail for stalking Kathy Ireland, the supermodel. So he moved up the food chain.
That's amazing. I love that you have like tabs on your stalker. This is probably wise.
Yeah. So anyway, so I went back to school at Arizona State. We live in Arizona, and I went back to school at Arizona State, and then we moved. And so we moved to Austin, Texas, and I transferred all my credits and went to school in Austin. And then we moved, and I transferred all my credits to Weber State. We moved back to Arizona, and Arizona ASU said, oh, sad for you. We've changed our program, and all of your 100 level credits, you have to retake those, and you're now a freshman, even though you were a senior. And I burst out into tears in their office. I mean, I just have to graduate sometime. And BYU came up with their Bachelor of General Studies, their online program that was new-ish at the time. And I had little kids, and I just started doing it and put my head down and finished that dumb degree, and didn't care what I graduated in. It was just taking my control, taking my power. So.
I love it. That is awesome. So that's how you got, that's where you ended up getting your degree in, was it general studies, or was it the?
Yeah, so it's political science through the Bachelor of General Studies program.
Okay.
So fast forward, that was a lot of information. Sorry, I kind of got stuck in my.
You're good.
So fast forward till all the babies that I have 3 children, and they are leaving the nest, and I'm now, I had not worked, but I have this degree. And so what am I going to do with my life? Mm-hmm. And I was serving as Stake Belief Society president, and someone said, you have to listen to this podcast. It's amazing. And it's now called Leading Saints. It was a Leading LDS podcast. It was a 2016 interview with a woman named Deanna Murphy, who is the CEO of People Acuity. And it was a life-changing, I probably listened to it 15 or more times, just life-changing in listening to her. And at the end of the podcast, she says, if anyone wants to come to my seminar in Salt Lake, mention the podcast, I'll give you a 2-for-1. So I had my husband listen to the podcast also, because it was so good. And he said, let's go. I will use this in my career. Let's just go. So we went to her seminar, and it was absolutely life-changing for us. And in learning about Gallup strengths, and learning about the way that we express ourselves and gain not only energy and fulfillment, but engagement in all that we do, and then understanding other people. As we left that seminar, Deanna came up to me and just said, I'm just drawn to you. We're supposed to work together. I'm like, that makes no sense, but thank you for sharing that lovely idea. And it just went out of my head, and it kind of picked at my husband's brain. And he said, you need to follow up on this. And that started my journey of becoming certified through people Acuity and working through that for a while. And then going out on my own using Byron Katie's stuff, using Jody Moore and Brooke Castillo stuff. There's just some amazing coaching. Whitney Johnson is fantastic. Michael Bungay Stanier. There is so much wisdom out there that just helps people live more fulfilling and have ownership over their lives, and really release the contention with others that we don't understand why it's coming. I think a lot of people have just a person that they don't get along with. Like they want it to work, and they just always pick at them. It's usually a family member, often a coworker. Like, what's going on? And through a lot of the coaching information, people just have these ahas about, that's what's happening, and that's what that person is offering me and teaching me, and it just shifts everything into a beautiful experience rather than that just sandpaper experience that we have. And I love that. I love being in that space.
Yes, I love that too. And I've seen that work in my own life and for other people. It is really amazing to see how just one little change in the way that you think about things or see things can change everything for you, even though it's just here. Nothing else has to change, but
I have daily someone say to me, my life changed. My whole life, nothing changed, and my whole life changed.
Yes.
And that is such the coolest thing ever. And also, I know that because it's happened to me. That's why I'm in this space, is I know exactly what they're talking about. That moment where it's like, oh, I was looking through a glass darkly. I was not seeing what was really going on. And
yes.
I love that. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Yes, I love that about coaching as well. And I'm curious, with the people Acuity, that's focused on the Gallup CliftonStrengths stuff, right? Or do they do?
Yes, they also have their own programs and information and things that are amazing and wonderful. But there's a strength that you can take through that polling organization. It's called the CliftonStrengths. A man named Don Clifton started developing them in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And it is a wonderful tool that's not very expensive. You can get your top 5 strengths for $20. I highly recommend bothering to get your full 34 list, because it's huge to just see yourself. And everyone that I've shared that with and then worked with on a strengths capacity, as we're speaking that language, mm-hmm. It just empowers and lets them see things and see what's going on. And I know you have had like some really big aha moments with the strengths, and in your family with the strengths, and how that has been helpful in just, that's what's going on, because we just each speak this language, mm-hmm. and we think it's just obvious that that's the way stuff should go, and it doesn't make sense that other people don't see what we see and feel. We're very blind to that in our human experience. Even if we're high in empathy, we're still really blind to why someone needs something different, and understanding what's going on just changes everything.
Yes, it has been very, very impactful for me personally, and with my husband. Like it really has helped me to see him and understanding how the things that I think that are really important, that I feel like I need in relationships and in the world, he feels just as strongly about, but he has different things that he needs, because we just have different personalities. This is the way that we are. But it's been a really helpful framework for me. I really am grateful.
It explained, my husband and I drove away from that first conference up in Salt Lake, and my husband gets me emotional. He started crying, and he said, I wish that I had known this when we were raising the kids, because we started this little journey after they moved out, and he saw in this, how we parent usually, or give any advice is, oh, here's what I would do in that situation. And my husband's very successful. And so how he parented was, guys, just do it more like me. If you just be more like me, then you'll solve this problem, except for they're not a lot like him. And a couple of the kids are exactly opposite of him. And when you don't understand that, you just can't giving the same advice louder and louder and louder, especially as a parent. You got that power dynamic. Look, kid, I can see what you're doing wrong. Do it more like me. And that's just not usually the best advice. Occasionally it is, but usually that's kind of the worst thing, because people can't be a version of you. They need to be a version of you.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I love. Two things actually that you just brought up that I love about coaching is it's encouraging people and helping people to be the best versions of them, because the world needs them. Like the world needs you as you are, and like the youest you can be. And so allowing and helping people to embrace that about themselves, I think is really powerful. And I love the concept that I've heard Jody Moore say, people, saying, oh my gosh, I wish that I had known this when I was raising my kids, like all of these ideas. And her response is always, you're finding these things exactly when you need to. And I believe that's true with all of the things that come into our lives. It's in the right timing, and it's encouraging to know that. And then also encouraging to know that we can change course and like with the new information and make a difference from then on. Like it's beautiful.
And for us, I think for most people, the strengths give you a language of here's what's going on. My husband, high in deliberative and high in analytical. And so he needs to gather data, and as much data. You can't give him too much data. He needs to gather as much data and then consider it and really process it and organize it and take time to make decisions. And that's a gift. People who do that, they tend to make really good decisions. Well, my number one strength is activator, which is often described as ready, fire, aim. It's like, let's just get started and we'll figure it out along the way. So we learn this, and it's like this light bulb goes off of every disagreement we have had is tied to that single thing right there. I'm going, make a decision. And he's going, wait, we don't have enough data. Just hang on. You're making me go too fast. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what we get. And
I love it.
And it was this freeing gift for our relationship to be like, oh,
I see it now. I see everything. Yes.
So now I get to say, hey, my activator, it's like, woo, I need us. So I'm going to step back and you process. And when you're ready to make a decision, call me back in, but don't make me sit here and watch you think. Like,
I love it. There really is something to this whole idea that opposites attract, right?
Oh yeah. We have a lot of similarities, but like that's our conflict area in everything. I love, we were buying a house and we went speaking to the model home thing, and the real estate lady goes, oh, I have this thing that I think you'll like. And she pulled out a 3-inch thick Xerox package. And she said, this is every single possible option that you can have in our house, like in a house that we would build. My husband's soul just like, oh.
I love it.
My soul went,
run away.
And she said, you can't take it home, but I'll let you look at it right here. And so I just reached over and I just patted him and I said, so my activator is screaming, so I'm going to take the car and leave. And you just stay as long as you want and just call me and I will come right back and get you. And then everything was fine because he got to look and he just sat over in one of the corners.
I love it.
I read all the options and I was gone.
A kid in a candy store, right? That is,
yes.
Awesome. But I love that. I love the idea that it gives you a common language, because then you understand each other, what you need, and willing and able to give that to each other and then both be able to handle situations in a happier, more peaceful state. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about, well, I guess we've talked a little bit about what difference you see it making for the people that you work with. Are there general concerns that you consistently see in the people that you coach, like patterns or themes that emerge?
Yeah, I think so. I give a weekly workshop that anyone can come to for free, that just comes to it, because that's kind of how I scale what I do with lots of the clients. And there are patterns of things, but I work with these 4 scriptures that I think have really explained for everyone. When people understand these, whether or not I use the scriptures, when I do the workshop, it's at church, so I use the scriptures. But even when I do this with just a corporate client, these concepts are just life-changing. So first one that I use is Isaiah 55:8, which is, my thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not your ways. The way that we experience our lives is through this brain just telling us a story. It's making sense of what we experience. And I don't think we spend a lot of time realizing that the Lord tells us, Article of Faith 13, I'm going to skip down, if there's anything lovely, virtuous, praiseworthy, good report, seek after these things. The scripture it's based on says, think on these things. He's telling us there, manage your brain. He's telling us, control and decide how you're going to see stuff. Because for me, you've got a veil over your mind. That is mortality, is you come down here and you're not supposed to see the big picture. You're an eternal being. And this 80 to 100 years that you're going to be here, there's something spiritually enlarging about not knowing what's going on. The veil has a purpose, but we're an eternal being. We have a lot more to experience inside or outside of time. And so we think a thought, something happens, and then we think a thought, and we think, yeah, that's what's going on. That's what's happening. Well, it's not possible that we can see the big picture of what's happening and why we're experiencing things. Or why was I born in the United States and you were born in Ukraine, or you were born in a hut in Africa, and everybody is spiritually equal, right? We're all beloved, and so why are these circumstances so different? There's something about coming down here and getting a body that is important and not seeing what's going on. But we all just believe our thoughts. We think, oh, well, that's why that's happening, or that's what that person's doing, or and there's different science on this, but most people go with the idea that the average person thinks between 60 and 70,000 thoughts a day. There's some other science that takes it a little lower than that. I'm not sure it matters, because I think we all sit and we think a lot of thoughts. Yeah. Like our brain just goes da 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 da, squirrel, right? Just like it feeds us a lot of info and story, and we just believe that narrative that's going on. And I like to liken our brain to an organ. Well, it is an organ, and your different organs have different outputs. Your liver outputs bile, and your pancreas outputs insulin. Your brain outputs thoughts. And God tells us, look, seek after these things, think on these things, manage your brain. There's all kinds of great scriptures about your thoughts are so important. There's a great, I love that, Henry Van Dyke, Thoughts Are Things. There's a poem, I hold it true that thoughts are things. They're endowed with body and breath and wings. I won't get it right, but it's a very, very powerful poem about thoughts are things. And they create our experience. And most people, when you introduce this idea, they start to realize, yeah, what I decide to think about something kind of determines my attitude. It determines, if I'm just going to put my head down and do it, if I'm going to complain, or like we can see that. Yeah. But then we don't have tools to move forward, which is why I love coaching. Like, okay, I want to think something different, except for I'm pretty sure that this is going wrong and there's something wrong with me.
True. Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I love. Like, we don't examine our thoughts. I think a lot of times people like, and that this is something that I've actually like consciously thought a few times as I've listened to coaching stuff. I'm like, we don't talk about the thoughts that are going on in our heads. A lot of times it comes out, but we don't explicitly say, this is what I'm thinking and this is what it's creating for me. We don't ever like, it's not natural for that to come about. We just kind of believe, like you were saying,
whatever. Yeah.
Tell us. So
wow.
Yeah.
Right. And not most of that the science is pretty solid on this. All the different, researchers have done it, that 80% of our thoughts are negative. Right. So if we're not controlling our thought, and you think about most of the stuff we think is analyzing stuff that's going wrong. Oh, that person's driving dangerously, or my kid needs to do better at something, or my house is messy, or, just like the input and output is generally focusing on stuff that's going wrong. Well, that has an impact on how we experience our day. And I spend a lot of time with people talking about the shame and blame cycle, and how shame is saying there's something wrong with me, and blame is there's something wrong with you. And when I think about my temple covenants, I think this is a message that is so overtly taught in the temple. And most of us are just like, we totally miss it. That God is saying, look, come here, come closer, and let me help you understand what's going on. And nothing is going wrong. This is the part where you're supposed to be learning. And I'm going to even covenant with you when you do stuff poorly. When you mess up, I'm going to teach you some more, and I'm going to up level you. And Satan's like, hey, you in your rawest form, you're gross. So get out of my sight. You need to feel bad about, you're naked, but that is you in your rawest form, most vulnerable. You need to go hide.
This is the Adam and Eve story.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You need to hide. Well, and lots of other places. You're gross, so get out of here and hide from everyone, especially God, and then try and fix it yourself. And the Adam and Eve story, I just think it's funny. If you grew up with a fig tree, like most of us, and me who didn't grow up with fig tree, I'm like, well, absolutely use fig leaves because they're so big. Like, I want to cover as much of myself as possible, and the bigger the leaf, the better. Well, the back of a fig leaf has these little spines on it that they make you itch crazy. And so everyone who's grown up with a fig leaf knows not only is that like you're not helping, you're making it worse. Right? And everyone who had a fig tree would know that. We go, oh no, they're big leaves, so they cover us. No, you're making it worse. Like, the worst
bad idea
on your privates. Do not put fig leaves on your privates.
I love it.
So this idea that most of us pretty much believe the thought, something is wrong with me, and so we feel shame and we shrink our life, or something's going wrong. We're blaming something. You shouldn't have done it that way. That shouldn't have happened. That, just some version of you're doing it wrong, or the world is unfair somehow. And both of those, we flip flop back and forth between shame and blame, trying to make sense of what's happening. And when you kind of stop for a second, both those ideas, there is nothing wrong with you. You are having a mortal experience with a veil over your mind. You're not supposed to see, and God is completely aware of that. But most people are like, God is so unhappy with me, and other people are so unhappy with me, and everyone's disappointed in me, and I'm disappointed in me. And most of us live in kind of that state of, I'm just letting everybody down because I suck.
Well, and I think we also turn it outwards, and we get worried about other people's decisions, like people that we love, and we think that we're coming from this great place of love and compassion, but we forget that we don't know what God is thinking. He's got it. It's okay. We don't need to be so concerned about everybody else as well. I
had this mind-blowing, and this is not mine. Someone in my Easter celebration pointed out that Jesus did not even inhibit Judas's agency. Like, he knew perfectly what was about to happen, and he washed his feet. Like, he just gave him more love, and then told him, look, if you're going to do it, go do it quickly. Do quickly without do us. And I think how much of my life, particularly parenting, but also professionally and with people around me, am I inhibiting agency, right? I need you to do it my way. I need you to do it the way that I think you should do it. I need to control the outcome. That's a big thing that we talk about. I need the outcome to be what I would like it to be. I need my kid to go on a mission. I need my boss to recognize me. I need my spouse to appreciate me or come home on time, or whatever. I need to control the outcome in order for me to feel okay. And if the outcome is not what I want it to be, then I bounce around and there's something wrong with me, there's something wrong with you, there's something wrong with you.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. I love that perspective that you got from the Easter celebration too. Like, that's really profound. Christ didn't try to stop anybody from doing what they were going to do. Let's make those choices. That's awesome.
Like, he didn't, because as I thought about it, he didn't have to be betrayed to start his mission. Still, they could have arrested him. He didn't need to have someone help arrest him. That's true. I've thought about that. I thought, it streamlined it, but they still would have arrested him. Right?
That is really interesting.
So second concept is, and I use 2 Nephi 2, chapter 2, 11 through 14, or the scriptures that I use for that. But this is this idea, and you find it a lot of places, which I love, this 50-50 idea. There's opposition in all things. So if we're experiencing that, if that is a truism, and even if you're not religious, people can see, okay, if for the way that I understand life is that I know death is possible. And until I experience some form of death, someone dies or something, I don't fully understand life. And same with happiness and sadness or success. We've gone through culturally, everybody gets a trophy things. Well, nobody cares about the trophy, right? Like, thanks for the trophy, but I know that our team was last place. We get the soccer trophy, yay! It was like the participation award, and it doesn't mean anything if there's no potential for failure. Then success loses its meaning. And so this idea of the necessary tension with the opposition is really powerful. And the way that I teach this, I love how I teach this.
I love to teach this too.
Tell me if you can't see my board, okay? So
I can see it, but do you want to describe it as you're going, or do you want me to?
Yeah. So can you see my circle?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So this is your life. This is Bethany or me or any of us, right? This is my life. And so if opposition is a thing, then we would expect that we would have half of our life would be stuff that we like, and half of it would be stuff that we don't like. So like, I don't like failure. So we would say, I don't want to fail. And I don't want to be alone. And I don't want pain. Like, we can come up with a list. Can you think of a bad thing? Like, what would we put up there that people don't like?
I was just thinking sickness, but I guess that's kind of along the lines of pain. But yeah, sickness.
We're
just coming off of the stomach bug, so I'm like appreciating health even more right now. I'm seeing that contrast. So.
Absolutely. So most people are like, I don't like when I'm experiencing those things. I want less of those things. And so how do we get less of those things? Well, if that circle is your life, then people make their life smaller, right? And then I experience less of those things. But because our life is a circle, then also we are giving up, we're forfeiting all of this for their opposite. So we're forfeiting health, like all that much health to appreciate that. And we're forfeiting success and connection and pain, joy. Let's do joy as an opposite of pain. Like sometimes I get in classes and people get really semantic and they're like, that's not the best. I mean, I completely agree with you.
We're just going to go with this.
Just going conceptual, you may create your own. So,
okay.
Right. So we shrink our life so that we can feel less of this, but then we also give up this. So if I want less failure, then I try less things.
Yes.
Because then I don't fail at stuff. And so I don't succeed at stuff. And if I don't like aloneness or rejection, then I don't put myself in situations where anybody could reject me. I don't ask the girl out. I don't host the game night. I don't, because then people can't reject me. So I can't experience this. I'm controlling that. I'm controlling the outcome, but then I forfeit this connection. Yes. It's opposite. And so this smaller version of me becomes really inhibitive. And then that's how we have anxiety and depression. Look, I'm trying to control the outcome. I don't want these bad things to happen to me. I'm unwilling to experience what it feels like to feel failure or anxiety or rejection, or the outcome isn't what I want it to be. I want it to always be the good things, except for that's the participation trophy. And it's meaningless. And we know it's meaningless. This is also living in your mom's basement playing video games all day, right? This is a very small, very safe, someone's taking care of me. I'm not trying anything. And like I tell these young single adults, I have yet to hear of a story where someone significant other fell down the basement and they fell down the stairs like they got married. I've heard a story where they got into a car accident and met each other and I've heard that story, but I've never heard where you're sitting in the basement and someone falls down and then you fall in love. I've not heard that story.
I have not heard that either. You can add my testimonial to that.
Yeah. So it might happen one day just to spite me, but so this concept, okay, yes, love that. Except for then what does that mean if I want more of the good stuff, right? If I want, and I also, one of the good examples I talk about with pain and joy is unless you're going to get a tortoise that can live 100 years, when you get a pet, you're basically signing up for, I'm going to go through grief one day. Nice. I'm going to experience the loss of that pet. And anyone who's lost a pet, particularly a dog or a cat, something that lives in your home, the grief can be significant, like losing a child even. And most people will say, okay, I don't want to have that happen again. That's so painful, except for then you'll hear people say, my house just felt different. That energy was different. I missed the energy. And then they go out and get another dog. So most of the time people are like, I want to shrink my life and not have that pain again. But then they forfeit the joy of the connection with the animal. And then when you decide, okay, I'm willing that someday that animal will pass, I'm going to experience the time that I get to have that connection. And that's an example of shrinking and expanding your life. So you want more of this stuff. You have to be willing to experience more of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Right. It's just, it's how the concept goes. And then I like, and we see this in Eastern traditions, we see this, we really talk about it. The scripture says all things must needs be in one. Well, what is this? We start recognizing, oh, failure is not a bad thing when we learn from it. And we, if you ever want to, you never look at a baby who's learning to walk and you're like, come on, just learn to walk.
You're right already.
Yeah. You recognize that in order to learn to walk, you fall down a lot. And we don't make it mean anything. We don't make it mean they're not trying hard enough or they're not good enough. But somewhere, it's around 3rd, 4th grade, the brain changes and we start making this mean something about us. Mm-hmm. And I'm not good enough. And I don't want people to see me trying and not getting it. I don't want to learn to play a new game with people because I'm not going to be really great at it. Or I don't want to learn I don't want to learn to paint because people are going to see me sucking for a while. And so we get this smaller life. But the person who's like, I recognize that I'm going to learn some things and it's going to be hard for a while. I'm not going to be good at it. I like Michael Bungay Stanier's teaching about unconscious incompetence, like you don't know what you don't know and you're not good at it. And then conscious incompetence, you know what you don't know and you're still not good at it. And then conscious competence, you know what you know and you're getting good at it, but you have to think about it. And then unconscious competence, which is, okay, I don't have to think about it now. I can drive home and nobody has to tell me where to turn. I don't have to think about it. I just show up at home. Right. And
the necessary stages to get to that point. Like you have to go through all of that.
You have to be willing to experience those 4 stages in order to gain mastery of anything. Right.
Yeah.
So I just like this. I think, I draw this circle, but I think it's more like a yin and yang. I think it's more that they need each other. They nestle into each other. And there's a little bit of light in the dark and a little bit of dark in the light. And when I teach this, it's a whole hour class. I'm giving you the cliff notes. But when I teach this, I'll say, okay, so which one is the positive and which one is the negative? Now, usually people say, well, the light side's the positive and the dark side's negative. Okay, fine. Except for then what's that? What's the dark that's in the light? It says, look at it, that there is they all are in one. Right? What's the light side and the dark? Oh, when I fail, that means I've learned stuff and I get better. And when I succeed, that also means there was a chance to fail at stuff.
And a lot of times it was failure that got you to that point too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you need the failure. You need to be willing to not be good at something in order to be good at something.
Yes.
Right? It's just not a thing where someone becomes a great 3-point shooter in basketball naturally. That's just it's not a thing. It's a skill that you have to develop. You have to work on. You have to practice. No one becomes a good musician without practice. No one becomes a good public speaker without practice. And you have to, in order to do any of those things, you have to be willing to not be good until you start gaining competence.
Yes. I'm going to tie this into like, I think this is even true for things like faith and like mindfulness practice. Like people think that it just is natural for people to be able to sit in stillness or to believe in a higher power that helps them. Like it doesn't, those are things that you practice and are not good at first and get better at as well. It's any skill, anything, it's like that. And I remember when I was a kid, I always thought, you hear practice makes perfect. And I was like, okay, well, there's going to be a point where I don't need to practice anymore. Like I thought that was
right. Yeah.
And the older I get, the more I'm like, oh, nope, it's still true. It's still true. You still have to practice.
And it reveals these cool layers that if you're like, no, there's going to be a next level for like, once I get good at walking, I can start jogging or skipping.
And I can get better and better at that too. Yes. That's true.
And then once I get good at that, I can get good at, jujitsu or just something more technical with that competence, but I have to have my center of gravity under me. I will talk to clients. There's a book. I should not say things like that because I can't always recall it. Okay. When I need it. And so it's about meditation. And it has a practice in there where it tells you to get a flower, and then you set a timer for 5 minutes. You focus on your flower and just keep bringing your brain back to, I'm only thinking about the flower. It's crazy hard.
It's so hard.
For 5 minutes to think about one thing. We just have these monkey brains, these lizard brains, these hummingbird brains, whatever, there's lots of different analogies, but most of us know, particularly women, like our brains have a lot of things to task. And we like tasking, we like gathering all of the things. And so calming that brain down and focusing and learning to be the master of that organ, to control, decide what we're going to do right now. And then it tells you to up the time. And why you choose a flower is the flower actually changes every day, right? There's a lot to look at as you watch a flower kind of move into chaos and entropy and die, and fascinating if you can do it, and just learning your brain. I teach yoga, and the meditation part of it is the meditation and breath are much more important than all the put your foot behind your head and
right
things that you can do. It's, can you master the brain and stay present and out of judgment and control what you're thinking? And most of us spend little to no time doing that. We either let our brain run crazy or we numb our brain.
Yes
Right?
Just try to listen to all the other things and not be present. Yes, it makes a huge difference. I did hypnobirthing with 5 of my kiddos, and actually with my first, I tried it. Like I read the book and I listened to the CD that came with it a couple times, and I was like, oh, I've got this. And then I went into labor and I was like, oh, I don't got this. Give me the drugs. And they did, and it was great. And then, but with my second one, I like took a class and I practiced it every day, and I would like, it became, a part of me. And it's something that I still use to go to sleep sometimes. Like you learn those skills, but it's a daily practice that you have to do when you're not in the middle of needing it. And then you get to a place where you can call on it when you need it. And it made, that practice is what made all the difference. So yeah, it is good.
Yeah.
And with this picture on the board, do you continue it on? Like, are you going to show us the?
Yeah, I mean, I have those 4 scriptures I talk about, and I do them with all clients, even if I don't cite the scripture. But the third one is 1 Peter 4, 12 and 13. And I love the language of it. Beloved, think it not strange, this fiery trial, which has beset you. And it talks about how, and most of our brains, so, once we recognize, and that second Nephi scripture is so great, taking us through, look, if there's no law, then there's no righteousness, right? If you can't break a rule, then you can't be good because you can't follow the rule. And if there's no righteousness, there's no wickedness. Like you can't, and it takes it all the way through the logic chain of, okay, then if there's not all this stuff, there's no God. Wait, how do we get to that? That took a turn really hard, right? And then if there's no God, there's no creation. So we don't exist. I always put there's no we on the board because that's what the actual word is. But there's no us. We don't exist. If there is no God, there's no creation. Mm-hmm. And so the opposition is fundamentally necessary for our existence. But most of us are really resistant to opposition. When something happens that we don't like, or we would file under opposition, we say, this is a fiery trial and something's going wrong. And that Peter scripture, think it not strange. We signed up for, I know in the pre-existence, I was nerdy little me sitting on the front row of the council in heaven as they're explaining everything. They're like, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go down there and you get a body and you're going to feel stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And then you're going to have, the body's going to feel this thing called pain. And it's very unpleasant and really hard. And it's going to teach you stuff, and it's going to make you more like the Savior. That's like why pain exists. That suffering is how you get to the joy. Verse 13 in that Peter scripture. That if you can't experience Christ's sufferings and be partakers of his sufferings, then that the joy does not get revealed. That's how the joy is revealed. Okay. So I'm like, I'm sure I was on the front row, like, yes. Okay, I want lots of that pain, like that pain stuff, because I'm going there to be like Jesus. And that's what I'm doing. And so give me all the pain and disappointment, whatever that is. I want that. And trial, I want that. Like all because that's why I'm going. So load it on me. And then I'm down here with a veil over my mind going, everything is going wrong.
I love it.
I don't want any of this pain. Make it stop. And I've said the prayer so many times. I'm pretty sure I've learned everything that I'm supposed to learn in this trial. So can we please have this particular trial be done?
I love it.
And he's up there doing
everything. Thank you. Please, let's move on.
Yeah. and he's up there doing what he always does with me, like, oh.
That's awesome.
Because the whole purpose of this is to have this opposition, these trials, and yet we're very resistant to them here. When we do tap into there's a purpose, you see this shift in how people experience their trials. You see it a lot with people who suffer from chronic illness and the lesson of chronic illness, which is it just sucks. But the lesson in there, when people lean into that, it opens a really profound experience. And there's a depth that people get from the level of that suffering. And you talk to people who are going through that and the wisdom that they have because of the suffering. And the suffering doesn't go away usually with something chronic. And so I just will marvel at this depth and richness of character and wisdom, and you don't get that without that. And we all were it was explained to us kind of like a timeshare. They explain it and then you're like, I want out. I want out.
I love it. I love that.
I was not signing up for these monthly fees for the rest of my life.
I didn't know that part.
So that resistance to suffering, it blocks access to joy, the wisdom, the learning, and it's super mortal and normal. That's how the shame blame cycle gets initiated. There's something wrong with me. I'm being punished. That's why I have cancer, or that's why my kid is struggling, is I'm not righteous enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not competent enough. And so I'm being punished. The universe is punishing me. God's punishing me, whatever, however you make sense of this experience. There's a lot of people are pretty sure I'm just worthy of punishment. This idea that God is just angry and disappointed in me, or the universe, the karma, however you want to explain it. People are pretty confident that there's something lacking in them. And all of the messaging, even if you're not religious, right? All the messaging is different. It's you are good enough. But I also think, I heard a speaker, I thought this was very powerful, that we can tell when it's not God's voice or our voice because it's second person. And I started realizing, yeah, you are such an idiot, right? You are so dumb. You are so incompetent. Well, all of that is not, if it's coming from me, then I say, I'm so dumb. If it's coming from Satan or an outside party, then you're so dumb.
Interesting.
And I thought that was a very astute awareness, because a lot of the beat myself up messages that float around in my brain come in that second person. And right away, I should be able to tell that is not me talking to myself. That is not my intelligence. That is not me. I am not my thoughts, those thoughts that go on in my head. And I know that I'm not my thoughts because I can think about my thoughts.
Yes.
Right. And so if it's coming in second person, then it's not me.
That is interesting. I haven't thought of it that way before.
Yeah, that was I loved hearing that. That was a man, he's just come out with a book and his last name is Deaton. I don't know his first name, but his book just got published. And it talks a lot about thoughts and creation of thoughts and owning of thoughts and satanic thoughts. And he has this passage in there that is shockingly powerful of all of the things that are satanic thoughts, and they're not messages. If it's not lovely, virtuous, praiseworthy, of good report, it's a satanic thought. And I appreciated that characterization because it made me sit up and take a little more responsibility for how I manage those. Because a lot of times I just let them go and believe them. Yeah, I am. I know I suck. I know I'm not good at stuff. I know I could have done that better. I know. Well, yeah, that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Yes. That's
really... I love when I sit with a client and I'll say, okay, let's just slow this down for a second. So you've had this thing happen to you, this circumstance happen, and then you're making it mean that you did that wrong. Okay, prove that to me. And so they'll try, and I'm pretty wily, and they can't, because I can answer with, so you're supposed to be perfect at stuff, and humans are never supposed to mess up, and the human experience is never supposed to have any of that. You're always supposed to get this stuff right. And pretty quickly, it's pretty easy to see, oh, I'm holding myself to this really irrational standard. And I might be holding others. Usually we're worse to ourselves, but I often hold others. Parents, my parents should have been like this, and then my life would be better if my parents had just been different or acted differently, right? Or if my kid will be different, then I will be okay, or that will mean I was a good parent because my kids do all the right things. So this idea that these thoughts are real and something's going wrong is just not true.
Yeah. And these thoughts they come, we have so many thoughts, and we don't take the time to question them a lot of times, and that's less than helpful.
We don't ever, I never did until I started this work. It didn't cross my mind to think a thought. I would sometimes try and rally myself, like, I'm just going to be super positive right now, or I'm going to try and stop crying, or I'm going to try and stop. But it didn't cross my mind to say, wait, is this true? That's why I love the work of Byron Katie. Byron Katie will take you through, you can go to her website, thework.com, and she will take you through 4 questions that are life-changing. I love watching her coaching sessions on YouTube, because it's powerful to watch other people get coached. Because you're like, why won't they let go of that thought? It's so obviously not true, except for you start seeing yourself, oh, I'm hanging on to my thoughts just as hard as they're hanging on to their thoughts. But that first question, is it true? Is it really 100% true? Well, who would you be if you could let go of that thought? Oh, I'd be free. I'd be happy. Who are you because you're hanging on to that thought? I got those backwards. Who do you become because you believe that thought? Well, I'm suffering, some form of suffering, because I believe that thought's true. And then who would I be without it? Free, happy,
yes,
accepting,
nice,
peaceful, right? Nice. And then can you find evidence of the opposite? And every client I've ever had, you can find evidence of the opposite of that thought you're thinking. Well, then if you can find evidence of the opposite, the thought's clearly not true. And that helps your brain loosen it. I had a client whose husband had an affair. I like this story. And she said, my husband destroyed the family. Well, okay, who are you because you believe that? Well, I'm grumpy. I don't work with the attorney. I try and turn the kids against him. All I talk about is with my friends. That's all I talk about is his betrayal. Okay, who would you be without the thought? Free, happy, peaceful. I'd get through with the divorce and I wouldn't be fighting it the whole time. Okay, can you find evidence of the opposite? And she said, okay, so my husband destroyed the family. My husband didn't destroy the family. Yeah, he's still a dad to the kids, and he's still like, she came up with some, but this is the powerful one. Okay, my husband destroyed the family. What's really opposite from that? I destroyed the family. And this light bulb went on for her. I mean, the poor thing, it was like she was punched in the gut, because she realized that he had been having an affair for a long time. The affair actually did not destroy the family. Her reaction to the affair is what destroyed the family. Mm-hmm. And I don't say in this, oh, so just ignore the affair, but she recognized it was her reaction and making him punished and not working with the attorney and, talking about it all the time. That was what was the destructive force in her life, not his affair. I'm not saying stay with the guy or anything like that, but just that recognition that the opposite is often true. And what we can see in this is judge not lest ye be judged takes a different, deeper understanding, because the stories we're telling about other people are pretty much always about us. I've never had an occasion where we don't see ourselves in that and go, oh, that's about me.
Yes.
That's not.
I had to do some self-coaching the other day and realized that the thing that I was angry about was exactly what I was doing. Like it always turns it back and around and like, oh, okay, I see it now. But yeah, it's powerful to realize that, just to recognize that we're the ones that are creating our realities, and then that's good news, because then we can,
yeah, right. If you want to do the brain work and, article fate 13 it and look after the lovely and virtuous things, then your life totally changes. Yes. And if you want to hang on to the shame and blame, something's wrong with me, something's wrong with you, then life is harder. And you spin your wheels and you experience pain and disconnection and disengagement. And it's very unfortunate. So
it's ironic that it's harder to live that way when it feels so much easier. And it feels so hard to do the thought work, but then ultimately it's so much better. So.
Yeah, natural man's an enemy, right? Natural. Yeah. And my thoughts are not your thoughts, not some of my thoughts. My thoughts are not your thoughts. And the next scripture is, my thoughts are higher than yours. My ways are higher. You are just little kid,
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good stuff. Thank you. So did we get all four of them? Did you get
No. So last one is Doctrine and Covenants 122, 5-7. It's that brutal list of things that happened to Joseph Smith. There's not a thing on there. If your 6-year-old child is ripped from your arms at sword point, if the billowing surge and darkness conspire against you, if you're betrayed, if you're, it's one of those long scriptures. And then he punctuates it with, all these things she'll give you experience and shall be for thy good. And there's not a thing on that list that anyone would sign up for and say, I want that to happen for me. And what God's saying is, look, this stuff is for your good in its hardness, right? In its trial and suffering, and that this stuff gives you experience. It expands your capacity. It makes your life bigger. You become bigger because this happened to you. First time you get a flat tire and you have to deal with it, your competency just completely changes, right? It's for your good. The first time you fail a test that you care about, your competency changes. First time you get dumped, it's, if you've experienced that, your emotional competency changes. And so all these things give you experience and are for your good. But we're really resistant to that. We're like, no.
Yes.
I don't want
those things. And I love the idea that it is all for your good. The yin yang circle expanding to just like it's all white, which white light, it includes all of the colors. Like everything that we experience is ultimately for our good and our growth and our benefit, and yes to all of it.
Right. Yeah. And when we slow it down, we're like, yes to all of it. Then we're in it. We're like,
right. It's easy to say that when we're not.
Oh, to a lot of it. Yeah.
Yes. But it is, and I think it's important to give ourselves space and grace to feel both, to feel like this is not okay, and to also recognize this is for the ultimate good and my ultimate benefit. It's all part of it. All part of the process. Awesome. Well, this has been amazing. I love these insights. These are some of the things that, again, like the first time I met you, I heard some of these things. I'm like, oh, tell me more, give me all of it. So this is so helpful. And I'm really grateful that you're willing to share that with the listeners here. And is there anything else that you want to make sure that we like touch on, or?
No, don't open it. I have all the
I would love that, but all right, I know you have other things to get to as well. So is there a way that people could get in touch with you or hear more from you if they're interested, or
yeah, I mean, you're a fantastic coach, so I don't know that anybody needs me, but absolutely, if someone would like to work with me, I'm at azmaloney@msn.com. And absolutely can reach out that way, but I would always refer them to you. I think you're a fantastic coach and you're very talented at what you're doing, and it's impressive how quickly you gained competency, but it's because you decided, I'm just going all in, right? I'm not going to tell this story about, I'm going to be concerned with what I haven't done before. I'm not going to look to my past to define my future. And you, with your coaching practice, embraced that what I've done in my past does not inform my future. My future is wide open for anything I want to create. And you've done that with your practice. And I love that.
Thank you so much, Aslan. I appreciate that a lot. It means a lot to me. I feel like it's funny because I am an occupational therapist, and Thane, my husband, has always been like, he's a business-minded entrepreneur guy. And he's like, you should start an OT practice. You should do this on your own. I'm like, no, I do have zero desire to own my own business or do anything entrepreneurial. Like, that's your thing. You do it. I will support you. Give me like the box and I will be in it and I will be happy. and then I just feel so called to this. It's been like, and I'm so grateful that I feel like God has put people in my life, you being a major part of this, that has helped me along this path. That just, it just feels so right. And so I'm willing to do the entrepreneurial thing, even though it's not within my box. But I'm really grateful, and I'm so grateful for the good you're doing for the young single adults in your area. I've talked to a few of them, and I know that they just adore you and are so grateful. And in fact, one was recently interviewing with Jody Moore and mentioned your name as well. Like, you're doing good out there, and I really appreciate that. I'm grateful for that. So. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. And I love your insights. And I'm so grateful for you in my life personally and what you're doing here. And yeah, have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, so there you have it, my interview with the fabulous Aselin Maloney. I hope you gained some helpful nuggets to ponder. Thank you so much for being here. I hope the things that have been shared have been helpful and inspiring. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and share this with your friends. And please remember that I do coaching and would love to help you or someone you love to work through whatever challenges you're facing. You can hire me or get on my free coaching waitlist. That's a list for people who don't want to pay for whatever reason and are willing to wait for a coaching session whenever a spot opens up. I do 2 or 3 of these per week and just rotate through the list. I do this because I believe so much in the power of coaching and want to make it available to everyone who wants to make improvements in their life. Visit my website, www.lifeinspiredcoach.com, to read testimonials, find out more about coaching, and contact me if you'd like to be coached. Thanks again. See you next time, and keep seeking an inspired life.